Hi everyone, welcome to the Gamasutra Twitch channel. My name is Bryant Francis. I am a contributing editor at Gamasutra.com, and I am, as always, the invisible voice inside your head. Over on the bottom left-hand corner of the screen, as you can see, I am joined by two wonderful faces. Alex, first of the faces, would you please introduce yourself?
Hi, I'm back. My name is Gamasutra editor Alex Wara. That's my full given name on my birth certificate, and I'm here today next to a much more interesting and insightful guest. My friend, could you tell the folks who you are and what you worked on?
Hi, I'm Nathaniel, and I made this game called Songbringer.
And
This game right here.
yeah, what is real quick, Nate? What is Songbringer? What should we expect after we click new game here?
Well, imagine playing the very first Legend of Zelda, but it being set in like a sci-fi universe and being procedural too. So every time you play it, you can play a different world or play the exact same world.
Yeah. So Alex, had me restart this very short world I'd built based on the string RBFIGY. So I understand that there's a string system going on here where like these seeds will let you build specific worlds.
Right.
What would you recommend we get started with? And then I'll ask you how the system works.
Well,
If you
do you want to play something I know, or do you want to play something totally random, or what?
What's the best string? The number one string.
Well, there's no really best one, but I have a favorite.
Okay.
But
Let's play your
we
favorite.
could we could do my favorite, which is Wizard, because I know where everything is. I speedrun this on a regular basis.
Mm-hmm.
Let's see. Well, we're gonna watch me not speedrun it because I'm not that good at video games. That's a lie. I'm okay at video games. Oh, not Wizard.
Let's not bring that conversation.
Who's ass?
Wizass. The ass of Wizard. All right. So how does the seed system work? Nate, would you mind explaining that for us?
Sure. So it basically the letters combine, they mash all together to form a 32-bit number, which basically just generates a whole bunch of deterministic random numbers that generate your entire world. So basically, all of your world is based on that world seed. The layout of the dungeons, the layout of the overworld. There's 10 different dungeons. There's the single overworld. There's your spaceship Songbringer, which you can go back to. The order of the bosses, the order of the items, basically everything depends on your world seed. However, it's always the same story. It's always the same 10 bosses. It's always the same artwork and everything. It's just basically kind of like rearranged, and it all depends on algorithms too. So it's really flexible. Like a river could affect the screen next to it.
Yeah.
So we're gonna see in a second here, I assume, how the game is laid out, and then we can sort of imagine how that layout might change. I want to know, like, does anything in the actual game's design change as well? Like, do like hit point numbers, do damage values, does anything in the game's core design change based on the string, or not so much?
No, everything is exactly consistent. So it should feel, it's meant to feel about the same no matter what world seed you play. The only thing you're really going to run into that's a little bit different is some worlds might be slightly more difficult because of, like, Dungeon 1 might seem like it's a little bit more hard to get to, even though it's actually the same distance from your home screen. Maybe it's just, like, not as obvious, things like that.
This seems like really hard to play test. I mean, there are like however many numbers of potential generated worlds like locked inside that string. How did you do that?
Well, first of all, it's kind of like a surrender type thing. There's no way you could possibly test all the worlds. So what I did is I wrote in a bunch of assertions into the code to make sure that each world was turning out good. And then I tested a good 32 core worlds. I made sure that those worlds were always the same. Some of them were suggestions from doing live streams. People were like, hey, you should try this world seed, or maybe I tried this world seed and there was a problem. So I made sure these problem worlds were good as well. And so it just basically was more of a broader overview on like putting in some controls to make sure the quality always turned out the same.
So, okay. I'm fascinated by this game's look and style, and I kind of wanted to dig in. So we were looking at some of your prior work, and I noticed you're gonna have to help me pronounce the name of this engine because I've written about it, but I'm not actually sure. It's like Cocos2D X, right? Is that the tool that you used to make this?
That's how I say it.
Sweet. All right. So is that what you used to build this game?
Yeah. It's a free open source engine, C++. Yeah, and then also, so it's also Double 11 is my publisher. They're the ones helping bring it to PlayStation and Xbox. They have their own custom engine they have to use basically too. So for the Steam game and the GOG version, it's using Cocos2D X, but then for the consoles, it's using their own custom fast engine.
Can we just talk about this for a second? Because we've written about Cocos in the past, and they've done some cool stuff, but we almost never talk to developers who use it. Almost all. If we're going to talk about engines, it's either Unity or Unreal for the most part. So I kind of wanted to why. What do you appreciate about the Cocos engine, and how did it enable you to make this game?
So what I really appreciate about it is, first of all, it's really fast. So I can make this game really efficient. Like, for example, I run this mostly on a MacBook Pro, which has a big Retina screen, like a high DPI screen, and basically most Unity games make its fan turn on. So they're doing some GPU intensive stuff that basically just makes your CPU and your GPU or your GPU get hot and basically, turn on the fan, which kind of annoys me. I'm always like, man, this game runs my fan too. Sometimes I have to put an ice block under my laptop while I'm playing games, and that just sucks. So I wanted to make a game that was really efficient and fast and never turned my fan on. And that was super possible with Cocos2D X. And then another really important part of it is that it's completely open source, and so I can and have changed and tweaked a lot of the game engine and thrown out bits and changed little parts of Cocos2D X so that it just fits Songbringer a little bit better.
Do you have any memorable examples on things you had to sort of mess around with to make it work right for this game?
Let me try and think about that. Well, not really. I didn't really tweak that much. Basically the one thing I had to do lately was upgrade this one thing called GLES or something like that. So that basically it's just a newer version of so that people's OpenGL is more compatible and stuff like that. Nice.
Brian, do you have a sense of the story that's unfolding in front of you? Does it feel like yeah. I wonder, Nate, there is a story here. You mentioned there are persistent characters. How do you approach the challenge of telling a cohesive narrative in a world that can be reconfigured in a manner of keystrokes? Or do you even really stress about that?
Yeah, well, there is definitely some things that have been done. First of all, it's something you're going to experience some of on each playthrough, right? So you're not always going to get every single story element because you might not have been to every place or seen everything in each world. So that's kind of interesting because you can play it the second time and be like, oh, there's a little bit of a different story because I didn't experience it all the first time. And then as far as getting the story to kind of be coherent and actually play out the whole story, it's really just about putting the story elements in places where the player is probably going to go. You know what I mean? So you're probably going to find the first dungeon, and there's going to be a story element there. You're probably going to find the second and third dungeon, and there'll be a story element there. And there's definitely some things, if you're going to beat the game, that you're definitely going to see a few things and always experience some story elements that are the most important parts of the game, the story.
Yeah. Can you actually I want to dive? I've been trying to ask our developer interviewees more questions about their personal interests in their in their game making and storytelling. What were you interested in thematically in making Songbringer? Because it feels like there's actually there's a pretty clear vibe. There's a pretty clear voice. Your character is a reveler who seems kind of like a space traveler / partier, but now he's on this heroic quest. And you have characters lecturing him about pulling out this nano sword. What's kind of your vibe, and what do you like about this adventure?
Well, I love science fiction, of course, so you could see that in it. And I kind of wanted to create a world that sort of felt like Star Wars in a way. Star Wars is like a science fiction fantasy versus Star Trek being like an actual science fiction.
Mm-hmm.
So like Star Trek explains everything with science, and Star Wars explains some things with mysticism and like, you know, stuff like that, where it's not as sciencey. And then Songbringer is basically one of those. It's a science fiction fantasy where not everything makes entire sense, and some of it might be sort of mystical. And so the other big influence is Burning Man. So I love partying. I love going, you know, I love hanging out with my friends. I love having parties. And so I wanted to create a world where there were science fiction characters that actually one of their primary goals was to find new planets to party on. So that's kind of what Songbringer is. It's kind of cheesy in some ways. I don't consider myself a writer, but like, this is the best I got, at least for this game. You know, maybe next game I'll get better at writing.
Well, I'll actually say the dialogue is pretty good in terms of game writing. I was gonna say I dig the partying vibe. I really dig that because it just gives it character and it makes it feel like your character's a hero, but he's also like looking like his reaction to everything is sort of like I just want to go have a good time, man. Because it feels like that balance is working well for this game.
Cool.
Nate, how many times have you been to Burning Man?
Oh man, well, only 5 times I think. I started going in 2010. I met my lovely fiance, and I couldn't go this year because I had to release the game. I'm actually in such a freaking
Oh man.
Real quick note to everyone watching: if you want to ask questions for Nate, feel free to do so in chat. We will pull them in for you. Nate, correct me if I'm wrong, you're also a one-man band on this project, right?
Right.
You're like, it's just you, by yourself. How do you sort of, like, how'd you do it? How'd you, like, manage to make a whole adventure game by yourself? That's a lot of the indie devs are trying to, like, band together these days, I think.
Well, music and art are both pretty easy. I don't know why. Maybe it's just me, but like the music and the art parts are really, really just fun and quick things that get done fast. I don't know why. But programming is always the hardest part. It's like I'd say 60 to 80% of my time is just spent programming. And especially with a game like this where it's a procedurally generated game, the programming has to be spot on. So I basically just work a lot. I work too much, like 7 days a week, 10 to 12 hours a day for the last 3 years solid to produce this game. And I wouldn't encourage that to other developers. Like I would really encourage like taking more time, taking weekends off and things like that, because it's easy to get burned out. And I just do yoga and meditate a lot just to try and maintain sanity.
Did you burn out on this project at all? You don't sound like it.
No, I don't think I've burned out in the sense that like I'm tired of making this game or like tired of bug fixing or things like that. I guess I did get tired of bug fixing, that's for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's so many, like over 1,000 bugs at least I've already fixed in this game, and there's still more. So they'll be coming out in future updates, some bug fixes and new features, new items, stuff like that.
Yeah, so let's I'd be curious, given that, to sort of compare this to your prior work. I mean, I think Songbringer has hit the public consciousness in a way that maybe some of the other Wizard Fruit games haven't. But you've worked on a number of projects, and I want to know, did you burn out on those projects? Was something about working on this project different than those, or was it just the culmination of what you learned so far?
Yeah, that's a really good question. Yes, I feel like I did kind of burn out on past ones, and here's really was the big difference. I started this project after a big failure. So like my last game was like an iOS MOBA. I did it with my friend. We had a good time making it. You know, it was a great game, but we didn't do any marketing, so we flopped at the end of it all. After 2 years developing, I had ran up all this credit card debt, so I was in a really hard place in life. I had to make a change. I was considering never making video games again. You know, it's like what do I do now? This is such a bad situation. And I kind of just bucked up and decided, all right, well, if I am going to make a video game again, I better enjoy it to the max. You know what I mean? Like, what can I create that if it were the last thing I ever created in my entire life, that it would be worth it? You know what I mean? And that's the question I asked myself. Okay. And it worked. You know, this is my absolute passion project. I've always wanted to create a Zelda-like game, and especially one that could surprise me anytime I played it. Mm-hmm. And so this is my dream game. That's how I stayed motivated. That's how that's how Songbringer was different, I think, than other projects in the past.
Nice. Yeah, I mean, certainly we talked to a lot of devs who are still holding on to the idea of some of their dreams they'd like to make before they die. But we also talked to folks who have put out something they've always thought about since they were young. I noticed that that experience isn't always good. Like, you seem to be in a good place, but was it hard? Has it been hard now that this game is finally out and released? Like, it's done, like this dream you've had is out, and it's not really yours anymore. It's out in the market. How has that felt as a human being?
Yeah, that is tough. Like, it's a big relief to start with. So there is a really big positive parts of it. It's like, it's a super big relief to know that it's out, it's done. The marketing is mostly finished at this point. And it's really exciting to have it in the hands of players, and also to be getting a lot of love. I mean, it's really amazing to see the reviews on Steam coming in really positively, and I'm excited now to just basically take it and make it better. So the one hard thing about it is that you get criticism. So criticism from reviewers, criticism from players, but the positive aspect of criticism is that it's mostly constructive, and there's actionable elements that can be gotten from it. And one of the things I'm working on right now is actually some hitbox improvements. So, like, some people have criticized the combat being a little bit imprecise, and I've already got some things in the works. I basically just tuned a few things. It's very minor changes, but and another thing people have mentioned is that the combat isn't as nuanced as they would like. Like, some people end up just mashing the attack button for the sword. Even though there's a top hat you can throw, which is like a boomerang. You've got bombs you can set down. You've got these kilobomb weapons. You've got a ghost sword which shoots out this projectile. You can blink as well, and then all of that you can combine with different elements. So there's a lot of different weaponry, but still people think there could be more to the sword. So I'm going to be creating some kind of item or ability that probably will be like a parry. So you'll have a different way of using a sword. You'll be able to, like, not only swing the sword, but you'll be able to parry attacks and things like that. Something like that will eventually come in one of the free updates planned within the next month or two.
Yeah, I mean, and there's certainly an upside to having a community interested enough in your work that they have complaints or suggestions for how to make it better, right?
Yeah.
You mentioned, some of your prior work, you've had a hard time getting it out there, getting it marketed, getting it in front of people. How did you do that with this game successfully?
Well, I realized I had to do something. You know what I mean? Like, the last ones, we didn't have a Twitter account. We didn't have any social media presence whatsoever for our multiplayer game. It's like, a multiplayer game of all games should have a marketing presence from day one. But anyways, so yeah, from day one, I decided that I needed to be doing marketing on a daily basis, even if I was embarrassed about it. Even, watch out for this guy. Even if I thought that the art sucked, even if I thought that, because a lot of times people will start out their games and they'll be like, wow, this art really sucks, or it's programmery art. That's what they think about their game, so they're embarrassed to share it with other people. But I would really encourage you to share it anyways, because it builds trust with people. People are like, wow, look at this guy. He's sharing his game, even though you can tell the art's not that great yet. So basically, I just did from day one. I wanted to make sure and do some marketing on a daily basis, and I posted GIFs on Twitter. I did live streams like up to 5 days a week. I was doing many, many live streams, just building up a following before doing the Kickstarter. So that was because I had ran out of money. I had no money whatsoever. I needed to make something. So I did a Kickstarter about 4 months into the development, and luckily it succeeded, because if it hadn't, it never would have got made. And so I'm eternally thankful to all the backers.
Was that your first Kickstarter?
Yes.
Oh man, what was that like? How did that go? I've heard it can be incredibly stressful and surprisingly time-consuming.
Yeah, it is, and I would prepare for that too. If you're going to do a Kickstarter, definitely set aside a month. You know what I mean? It's a solid month of work, and it can be nerve-wracking in its own sense, but it was the most rewarding thing I've ever done in my entire game development career, because it verified that, wow, nice job.
Thank you.
Yeah, take down the first boss without even trouble. That's right on.
Brian's very good at video games. He doesn't like to admit it.
I'm a white belt, yes.
Yeah.
Whew. Sorry, that was very exhilarating.
That's cool. Like
And real quick, John Oster wants to say congrats on release. They've been following development for a year, and they just dropped into Twitch chat to say congrats.
Oh, sweet. Nice.
So just remind everyone watching, when did the Kickstarter run? A couple years ago, I think. Yeah,
so it ran in 2015.
Okay. So that's like good. That's like reassuring to hear, because the promise of Kickstarter, when it sort of came to the notice of the game dev industry, was like, you don't need to have a huge following. You don't need to have a publisher backing you. You can just have a good idea and prove that you can do it. And if it's, people want it, they'll come help you make it. And that worked, right? And then Kickstarter became such a big funding platform that it almost seemed like it was very difficult for small teams to get noticed on it, because you'd have all these huge studios relying on it year after year for multi-million-dollar projects. And so the idea that, like, you just had an idea, you literally basically ran out of money, and you put it on Kickstarter and it worked, that is a validation of the promise that I think has been lost in some small way. What was it like trying to balance the access that the Kickstarter crowd had to your work with actually trying to make the game and balance it the way you felt it should be balanced?
Well, people didn't get their so there was a couple tiers. So basically, the people that backed at a really high level got to play it right away, and then most people didn't get to play it for like a whole another year after that. And I kind of felt bad about that, because I was like, man, this is taking longer than I promised people. But at least they got to play it at the right time, where they got to come in during the beta phase really more than just like the alpha phase. So it helped to kind of separate that out into different phases where some people got access, and that really worked. That worked pretty well. And it should be noted that I chose not to do a early access on Steam, because I really felt that was something that suited more like multiplayer games or entirely procedural games. This game has story and characters and things like that, where you kind of want to experience it all for the first time. And I really felt that early access would kind of ruin that. So it was always a private, closed beta, mostly backers and just people that pre-ordered the game that got to play it in its beta state.
If you had to do it differently, or if you had to do it over again, would you do anything differently about the way you funded and released the game?
Oh man, that's a really good question. I mean, I would definitely do Kickstarter again. That's for sure. I really do feel like there was a gold rush phase, like in 2013 and 14, and maybe even before. It feels like there was like a real rush to all that. Yeah. But I think by the time I did it in 2015, that was over. And so I really feel like it is a viable platform for developers to have that dream you were talking about, Alex, to get the backing and the funding they need to make something a reality. And I think the one thing that you can't rely on is Kickstarter bringing you the traffic. You got to build up a following for your game first, and you need to be confident that you have enough of a following and people are excited enough about your game that they would back it on Kickstarter before you just throw it up there. You can't let Kickstarter do the work for you. Kickstarter will amplify what you do. You know what I mean? It's like a multiplier on your own marketing efforts, I would say.
Yeah.
DK622 wants to know, do you have any interest in working on classic retro games IP, or are you focused on creating your own?
Oh, you mean like taking someone else's IP, like Chrono Trigger or something, and making a game out of it?
Yeah, like if you go, because you've got this pretty good, like, it's not completely a retro look here, but I think they're implying that, and that if you had the chance to like adapt a property using your dev techniques, would you want that?
I mean, I guess it would depend on where I'm at in life and stuff like that. Right now, I really love creating my own stuff, so I probably would say no, because I love being able to do whatever the heck I want, you know what I mean, and trying out experimental ideas and just having a fun time with it. Where if you're starting with an IP already, there's a lot of expectations and rigidity. You have to stick with the way things kind of were, or how people expect things to be. So I probably wouldn't do that unless it was maybe later in life at some point when, I don't know, I've already feel like I've created a lot of the things that I want to create.
There's another question here in chat. I think we should probably throw up a question of inspirations and influences. Splungy UK asks, and I think you answered this on Reddit, but we'll just touch on it again. This game has sort of a definite Hyperlight Drifter vibe. That game was funded on Kickstarter as well, they believe. So they want to know, was Hyperlight Drifter an inspiration? And if not, I want to know, what was an inspiration?
Well, so basically, I wasn't even aware of Hyperlight Drifter until I did around the Kickstarter phase of doing Songbringer. So it really wasn't that much of a direct influence, although I think it's one of my favorite games of all time. I love Hyperlight Drifter. I think the art in Hyperlight Drifter is incredible. It's like some of the most gorgeous pixel art I've ever seen. But what was an actual art inspiration was Sword and Sorcery. So when I was actually looking at, starting Songbringer and drawing the mock-ups of the art and stuff like that, it was heavily based on things like Sword and Sorcery. Crawl was a big one if you've played that.
Oh, yeah.
You could probably see that it's all like the chunkiness of the pixels in Songbringer are really close to how chunky the pixels are in Crawl. Another one was Legend of Dungeon. It was kind of a smaller indie title, but you can see the shadows in Songbringer. They stretch out and they sort of look 2D. And that kind of is all inspired by Legend of Dungeon. So those are some influences.
Yeah, it reminds me, I think it wasn't too long ago that there was something going around on Twitter or whatever about how all Unity games get sort of painted with the same brush. Like if a game runs on Unity, it looks like this, or it plays like this, or whatever. I think this is a really good example of how that's not at all true, right? Because someone can look at this game and say, oh, it looks a lot like a Hyperlight Drifter. That game is built on Unity. This game is built on Cocos. But they while they don't necessarily look the same, they share very similar vibes, inspirations, and yet they're running on two very different pieces of tech. And I kind of want to dig into your past at Wizard Foo, right? So before Songbringer, you've worked on other games alone and with other people. I noticed you've also been putting out kits, like game making kits. Can you talk a bit about that?
Yeah, sure. So there was a phase in my life where I was, I had basically given up on making games for a while. I made them as a teenager in high school. I made my own games. I was kind of an indie before there was even indie. I tried selling my own games on BBSs. We're talking back before, Windows was a new thing back then. And I only sold two or four copies or something like that of the game before I failed at selling the game. But anyways.
Was it like shareware where you had please send
yes.
money to this address and I'll mail you some discs?
Yes. You remember that?
Yeah, yes, of course.
That's exactly what it was. I had all these labels printed up. I had 3.5-inch floppy disks ready to go. I had all these bubble mailers and everything, and I was just waiting for people to send me checks, and I would send them the game.
You and Tim Sweeney both, yeah.
Yeah. Oops. Yeah, so I didn't really have much success with that, and I really wanted to be kind of less of a geek. I mean, it's I really felt like I wasn't cool enough in life, and I wanted to learn to make music and things like that. So I took almost a whole decade off from computer game development, and I just focused on learning to make music and things like that. And then in the 2010s, I got back into making games, but I had this fear at that point in my life, or a doubt, I guess you could say. I doubted that anyone would want to buy my games, probably because of my failures as a kid. So I was worried, okay, I can make my dream game or whatever, but is anyone going to buy it? Probably not. That's what I thought at that point. I was I didn't have much belief in myself. So I decided to make game kits instead. And I was like, okay, but I do have some skills in making games. I can at least share those with people. So I started making these game kits where people could pay me some money, basically, and they would get the source code to a game I had started, and they could, learn how to make games themselves from it, or start their own game with that kit, something like that. And it worked well for a little while. I was actually doing, decently well as a kid I was actually living on a boat at that point. And so for living on a boat, I was doing all right.
Nice.
But then it all kind of died because a lot of other people started doing the same thing. There was all these other kids, this explosion of websites where people were selling products kind of like it, and it just kind of just dwindled. And at that point, I was like, all right, well, do I make games now? Do I try this out? Do I believe in myself? And that's when I made a game with my friend, and we didn't do any marketing, and it flopped, like I just mentioned earlier.
Mm-hmm.
But then I learned my lesson and started Songbringer.
Nice.
That's quite a journey.
Yeah, I was going to ask if those kits were any sort of meaningful income, but I think we got the answer there. Why'd you move off the boat? That sounds fun.
It was so awesome. I love living on a boat. It was like I had this dinghy I would take to get out to it. Like it was a 5-minute dinghy ride just to get to my boat. It was so fun.
Yeah.
But there's some downsides to living on a boat. I had to carry like 5-gallon jugs of water out just to have drinking water. So we're talking like 6 or 7 journeys to get enough water just for a week. You know, like a journey 10 minutes long to go get 10 gallons of water, come back to your boat, siphon and or pour 10 gallons of water into your boat, things like that. No refrigeration, you know, the littlest things in life where you take it for granted completely, like hot showers, water in general on tap. That's a great thing.
Yeah.
So when I moved back to shore, I was like, wow, water.
I had a friend in college who did the exact same thing, and he gave the exact same example, which was like, it's great living out in the bay. It's cheap, it's affordable, it's beautiful, but I have to like row out to get water every day. And I was like, all right, well, maybe that's not for me, I guess. Brian, how you doing in there?
Good. Just trying to find my way and find other cool things to do. This is weird. I just like walked through this rock.
Do you want to
that is a bug that's already been fixed. But if you're playing the PlayStation 4 version, and it's always gonna. So the console versions have to go through this approval process.
Yeah.
So basically, they're gonna be like a few weeks behind the Steam version.
Yeah.
But yeah, all these kind of bug fixes and new features and updates are coming to the console versions. It just takes a minute.
You want to try a different string, Brian? I feel like I want something that's not dark and rainy.
I think it's always gonna be dark and rainy.
Oh, is it? That's cool.
It changes. It does change depending on your world seed and how many dungeons you defeated. That changes the weather.
Oh.
It's very atmospheric. It's just I want to see some of the natural beauty. But I guess I'll take that back because you're about to do a dungeon, it looks like.
Well, also I'm just trying to make some kind of progression.
Oh yeah?
Yeah, you know. If I constantly have to restart and fight that first boss. That is not as fun. Nate, I got a question for you. What do you think is special about the Legend of Zelda type, this sort of action RPG, Zelda influence kind of design? Because I think it's all like you've used it to create a cool setting. Other developers have borrowed from that setting to try and make some cool stuff. Like, what do you think just works about this kind of place and this kind of way of playing games?
Well, there's a couple things I love about it, but the first and foremost is the simplicity of not having to really deal with experience points. So that it also kind of takes away the grindiness of some RPGs, because some RPGs you're just kind of grinding to get your next level, you know, and stuff like that. A Zelda structured game like this, you're making progress by doing stuff. Like you just defeated a boss and now you got an item and now you're more powerful. So it kind of simplifies the whole game design and the feel and the experience you have as a player by playing something that's a little more Zelda structured like this. And I think it also kind of makes it a little more pick up and play, and also easier for people to, it's more accessible. So people kind of it's a little bit more universal in the sense that anyone can kind of pick this up and play it, and they don't have to learn about experience points or, you know, choose skill trees and stuff like that.
Yeah, and it does seem very accessible to a player. What's sort of surprising to me is this level of accessibility in the market. So it's on Steam, it's on PS4, and I think on Xbox too as well. Or am I wrong about that? So I haven't looked at the consoles yet, but on Steam, it's $20, which is a totally fair price. But there's no launch discount. And I kind of wanted to sort of dig into your thoughts on how you settled on the price for this and what you thought was like how you balanced sort of your financial needs versus like what you thought would sell.
Well, so I had always thought that I would charge less for this, but then it grew into so much more. I thought that it would be like about a $15 game for the longest time, but then it's grown into more than a $15 game. And at this point, really one of the biggest factors for me in choosing a 20. Oh, sorry, man, you died.
It's all good. I'm good. I'm having fun.
Nice. One thing that was really important to that was choosing a $20 price asserts a certain quality level. So as a player, if you see the game and it's only $15, you might think, wow, this game's only $15. Is it that good? You know what I mean? Yeah. Choosing a $20 price means it's kind of like you look at it and you go, wow, it must be good, or else people wouldn't be buying it, you know? So that's kind of asserts itself. And then secondly, it really adds some peace of mind to me as a developer, because I did a lot of math. In fact, for the longest time, I was convinced that $15 would be a better price because more people would buy it. But then I did the math. I looked at a lot of other indie games and looking at Steam Spy and doing all the math. And I finally realized that basically if you charge a little more for your game, you're hitting your goals sooner. And even though you might have, one game might have 400,000 sales and another game might have only 250,000 sales, they both have made the same amount of money. And so it gives you more peace of mind as a developer, because you can hit your goals easier and you're not as worried, I would think. It's also a trade-off. There's really no easy way to do it. It's more art than science. And there's even a whole article somewhere, I think on gamesindustry.biz. I was part of an article. Rami Ismail also commented on it, on pricing and stuff like that. So it's a tricky thing. It's an art form for sure.
So it's a small thing, but I'm personally curious. Why no launch discount? That's become such like a common practice among devs on Steam, but it's certainly not required. Why did you choose to forego it?
Well, I kind of was convinced by my publisher, to tell you the truth. They basically are of the opinion that basically most of the people that purchase your game when it's out at launch are people that have probably been aware of it and are watching it. And so why would you charge people less that are really passionate early adopters? You're cutting your own profits. So I hope that strategy works. I don't know. It's kind of a risk.
Yeah, but it does make a certain kind of sense, right? I mean, like price cuts can do so much to push a game from a wish list into a shopping cart. You know what I mean? Like down the line. And it's sort of strange up front, especially with games like Kickstarter, where I don't know how you priced your reward tiers, but it's not uncommon for devs to set a copy of the game at a reward tier equal to its like MSRP. And so then if you put that on Steam with a discount, in some weird way, your Kickstarter backers have paid more than your first day adopters, because they paid like 2 years ago.
Right.
So it's tricky for everyone, and like I think the proliferation of funding platforms like Kickstarter and early access has just made it even more tricky from a developer perspective.
Yeah, and there's one other thing too. It's like when the way Steam works, there's a huge mechanic of the wish list. You know what I mean? Some people are just going to wish list no matter what, and I think a $2 difference is probably not going to make too much of a difference for someone wish listing. They're probably just going to pick it up on sale when it's at the next winter sale or summer sale. You know what I mean? Those are such big sales for a lot of games. That's another thing I learned from looking at Steam Spy, is basically that games make a lot of sales during those.
Yeah.
I mean, they sell a lot of copies during those sales. So that's a really important thing. You got to plan for that mechanic. And that also is a big benefit to choosing a higher price, is that you have more room for setting up sales and discounts later on at the right time.
Yeah, I think a big part of it is just like having that little green flag next to the price that's like, oh, this is on sale. It's not even about the $2 off or whatever. It's like, just having that makes it more compelling for people to take out of their wish list and actually make a purchase. But I should jump back to chat. There's somebody asking a question we sort of already touched on earlier, but let's circle back around and get deeper into it. Captain Nautical wants to know, hey Nathan, how are you able to develop the game for the PS4 and Xbox One using Cocos2D? Let's talk about like what has it been like to work with your publisher on those ports?
Well, so basically, I wrote the game in Cocos2D X, and then my publisher took all of my code, basically, and then ported it for for Xbox and PlayStation. They have their own custom engine, so they already have this rad fast engine that already works great. Cocos2D X has some it's weird. Like they had these somebody from the Cocos2D X team wrote a port for Microsoft. You could get it on Xbox, but they can't release it to anybody because of legal reasons. You know what I mean? Weird. So because it's a free open source engine, and there's NDAs and things like that in place for console games. So basically, what my publisher did is they took Cocos2D X and threw away everything they didn't need, and then basically just rewrote a layer of code basically that would interface with their game engine in a way that it seemed like to my game, to Songbringer, it seemed like it was still using Cocos2D X, but it's actually using their custom engine that's built for Xbox and PlayStation.
That's really interesting. Bryant, how does it feel to be playing this on a PlayStation 4? Does it feel like it was built for a gamepad?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I would never have thought too hard about what engine it was had it not proved such a salient discussion point.
Well, actually, I don't think I've ever actually played a Cocos game, so I should, which is embarrassing. I should sit down and play this.
That might be the bigger issue here is that I have no comparison template. What the heck?
They're mostly mobile games, really.
Yeah, that's what I remember reading about, and so it's neat. I mean, it's neat, and it reinforces how silly it is to imply that an engine has a meaningful effect on what games you can make. I know certain engines clearly are designed for certain games and certain styles of games, but with enough creativity and ingenuity, you can make anything on seemingly almost anything. Anyway, sorry, Brian, go ahead. I kind of talked over you. Do you have any questions you want to squeeze in that I've been talking over you this whole time?
Sorry, just trying to figure out where to go.
Yeah.
I guess a better question would be, what do you think the market? Dang it, the market is for this kind of pixel art style game, and do you think there's anything other developers should know about before deciding to make a game like this?
Sorry. Can you repeat that? I was lost. I was about to give you a suggestion on where to go. But by the way, go south to. I want to show you a secret.
Sure thing.
So
nice.
go south 2 rooms, and then start heading towards the west wall.
Working on it.
For anyone just tuning in, I think we're still playing on the Wizard stream. If you type Wizard into Songbringer, you will get this.
Let me handle this room first.
No pressure.
We're doing okay. West wall. Oh.
Yeah, so there's all kinds of secrets. There's secrets where you can bomb walls. There's secrets where you can walk through walls. There's secrets where you meditate or eat a cactus. Have you even found the cactuses yet? I don't even think you found the cactuses.
Oh, yeah.
It's pretty interesting. It gets more trippy and psychedelic and spiritual, sort of.
It gets more Burning Man.
That's rad. Okay, so
more Burning Man.
Forget my pixel question. What do you think is the value of that of those kind of secrets in the game? What do you think? Why did you put those in there, and why do you think it was something that is going to help your game a lot?
Well, one of the core concepts of a game like Zelda, or especially Songbringer, is that it's all about discoverability. Or I mean, not discoverability, but the joy of discovery. You know what I mean? It's about exploration. Yeah. It's about finding stuff. It's about uncovering secrets. It's like, whoa, I just found that. That has always been really, really something I've always wanted in games. And I love about the very first Zelda. The very first Zelda really was like that. It's like, well, I don't know where to bomb. I don't know where to burn a bush.
Yeah.
But I wanted to bring that back and bring it in and put it really, really forefront in the game. And then it never tells you. The game never told you that there's a wall you could walk through right there. It's something you probably would either discover on your own, or you would either eat it. Sometimes you can eat cactuses and they'll show you where some secrets are.
Yeah.
So, it's all about the joy of discovery.
Nice. What's your advice to what's a good secret? What does a good secret feel like? How we had Bill Gardner tell us a while ago that if you want players to find to solve a key puzzle, you should give them the door before you tell them about the key. What would you suggest for developers about good Zelda-like secrets?
Well, gosh, he came up with a really good point there. I would say, it's got to be, in some senses, it's nice to telegraph to players that there might be something there, or hint at that, there's something. But really, I don't know. It's in some senses too. It's like you can just sort of throw secrets around and sort of randomize it a little bit, and then people might feel rewarded even more because they're like, "Whoa, I just found something that wasn't even obvious." But it depends. It depends on how difficult the dungeon is supposed to be and some other things.
This seems exceedingly hard for a game like this, right? Because like a secret like that we're talking about is an authored thing. It's something the designer hides in there specifically so that the player might find it usually. But this is a game that is designed to be like as unauthored in a way as possible. Like the player types in a string and they get this random assortment of rooms and layouts and stuff. How do you deploy interesting, fun secrets in a game that can be reconfigured in so many different ways?
That's an excellent question. And it really just boils down to design rules. So I really think of it as like a level designer would for a lot of it. But I just translate what a level designer would do into algorithms. So basically, I'm taking something like okay, I want that right there. Example is a really good example. You are in a room called the tease pattern right there.
Yeah.
That room he was just in where you got the item.
Yeah.
That's called the tease pattern.
Ooh,
and that is one of the most advanced portions of Songbringer's algorithms because it's a meta algorithm. It has to place that item in that room and then make it impossible for you to get to it in that room, and then still make a really good path somehow for you to get around the back of it and get the item. So it's just all about rules and like, okay, I placed that tease pattern here. How do I make sure that the tease pattern is even possible? So some rules, some algorithms go into making that all possible. And then it's just like...
Oh, bad day.
You got this.
You're fine. You got this. Don't worry.
Bad day.
You're the best, Brian. You're very good. You're very good at video games. You got this.
I now remember I have a dash. Okay, yeah.
You have a hat too.
Nope. Back to one.
Bombs really help, and dodging their freezing rays, of course, really helps.
Yeah. I'm gonna take a jaunt around the dungeon real quick because I saw some other stuff I want to look at before I go back to those guys. But yeah.
There you go.
Dodging dodging, not getting hit is good.
Yeah.
I feel like we haven't touched on really the thematic element in this game as much as I probably need because I'm not playing it. I don't have the full. Like I can't hear the music very well. I don't understand. But why does it say "give in to the fear" when you die? Is that like, is that just like a fun thing to put at a game over screen, or does it have like a stronger thematic resonance?
Yeah. So the thematic resonance there is that courage is your health. So yeah. So you're basically the what I wanted to create at the very beginning of Songbringer was you're this partying dude that your health is courage. And you're partying so much that you're eating these cactuses and you're tripping out and stuff like that. So when you're partying too much, you give into the fear. You're like, oh my gosh, I partied too much. Now I don't have any courage. I've gave into the fear. Mm-hmm. So that's kind of what the vibe is. And then it kind of grew into something a little more about courage and stuff like that, and more like simple prosaic things.
I feel like deep-seated fear at parties is something that a lot of people can relate to. That's a really good theme. We got to sort of wrap this up. We got about 10 minutes left, so anyone watching, if you want to get some questions into the chat, now is the time to do it. Brian, was there anything you wanted to get to? Any burning desires?
How do you feel? You wrote a blog on Gamasutra about like indies, and game pricing that you sort of talked about earlier. Do you think indies we talked earlier about game pricing? Is there anything you think other indies need to do beyond just ask if they think their game is $20, asking for $20?
Yeah, I would definitely do some research, as much research and analysis as you possibly can. You can't have too much research and analysis. Analyze everyone who might be a similar game, see what they're doing, look at other games that are in sort of your indie genre and see how they're doing it, how well they're doing on Steam. And I mean, in the end, it does take a little bit of guts too, because some people are like, oh, they fear a backlash from players, like, oh, people are going to negatively respond if I charge too much. And in some cases that's true, and in some cases that's not. I mean, it's really just about doing as much research and analysis as you can, and analyzing the situation from, a mathematical standpoint, and then kind of going with your gut, I guess. I don't know what else to say.
No, I think that's good advice. I think it's tricky to implement if you've never done it before, right? So maybe we could really quickly, in the last couple minutes, walk through how you did that for Songbringer. Like, what tools do you recommend, for example, besides just like looking at Steam and then maybe Steam Spy?
Well, I was gonna say Steam Spy, but yeah.
That can be it. It can just be like Steam or Steam Spy. What was your thinking process when you were evaluating Songbringer, how to price it, and what you thought the demand would be? Like, how do you gauge that sort of stuff?
Like I was saying earlier, I mean, it was really just boiled down to asserting the quality level of the game. I really feel like there's a lot of quality in this game. It's a good 8 to 10 hour experience at least your first time playing it, and then you've got a lot of replay value in the sense that you can kind of start a new world and have everything be fresh. And there's a quality level to the art, there's a quality level to the gameplay, and I really feel like choosing a price point that reflects the quality of your game is smart, because it will kind of assert the quality of your game to players,
Yeah, right on. Let me duck into chat real quick. People are coming out to slip some questions in last minute. Neo Cowplays asks, how would you compare Linux and Windows as platforms, given your experience on this game? Was there any meaningful difference working on Windows? With Linux? Was there even a Linux build of this? I'm sorry, I should know this, but I don't run Linux.
Yeah. So it runs on Windows, Mac, and Linux.
Nice.
Well, it's kind of a tricky thing because I develop on a Mac. I test on Windows mostly. And I occasionally test on Linux. So Linux by far gets the least attention because it's the least amount of people that play on Linux. Like it's crazy how many people actually just play on Windows. It's like 90-something% of people will play Songbringer on Windows, or like something like 8 or 10% or something like that will probably play on Mac, and then like 1% or 2% of people will play on Linux. So it's just a matter of mathematics. Like I can't really give Linux that much attention. But that said, I have developed every feature that does work on Windows and Mac does also work on Linux. So for example, you have full controller support, you have Rumble for your controllers, you have dual monitor support now, which is actually a bug fix I just put up on a patch, dual monitor support for Linux. So it's tricky having to do everything 3 times. That's a lot of work.
Yeah.
But at least you can kind of like separate the game portion of the code doesn't have to change. It's just the interface and the UI and the hookup into the operating system really has to change.
Yeah, and it seems like there are some practical business benefits. Yeah, I don't know if this is the case anymore, but I remember hearing that at one point at least, to be a part of a Humble Bundle, you had to make sure your game had a Linux version. And so having access to those kinds of sales channels down the lines, it seems to make the notion of making a game Linux compatible not just kind to Linux users, but also a wise business move. But there's some questions here about where you want to take this game next. I understand you may not want to talk about that yet, but maybe we can just talk about in general whether it's feasible to port a game like this to more platforms. Alien wants to know, are there any plans to bring this game to the Nintendo Switch? Is that something you feel like your publisher is that even really on the table at all, or not so much?
Yeah, so it's being taken under consideration right now. I get this question so much, it's so many people are requesting on Switch. Yeah. And the real answer is I don't have any solid information on this right now, but yes, Double 11 is looking into it. So if I get some solid information, I'll be announcing it on Twitter the second I know, but yeah. I'm hoping too. Let's just say that. I'm really hoping it does get on Switch.
Yeah, it seems like a good spot to be for indies, given how well that platform seems to be doing in the market. Okay, let's wrap it up. I've asked all the questions I thought were fun to ask, and then some. Brian, do you have any last minute bangers you want to slip in here?
Nope, nothing. I have nothing intelligent to say whatsoever. I've just been too busy enjoying this game and making Alex do all the heavy lifting. The secrets.
It's not true. soundtrack.
Yeah, you found another one.
Nope, I know this room though. I need that health. I have been Brian Francis, your humble game pilot and contributing editor at Gamasutra. Okay, let me go.
We should put Game Pilot on your business card. It's a really good title.
Game pilot. Yeah. If you enjoyed the stream today, if you enjoyed being able to ask developer questions like this, we would appreciate it if you would give our channel a follow, because that way we can let you know about more great interviews coming up. Guess I can't get past those. Aside from that, you can also read, if you just joined us later in the stream, we'll be having a video on demand of this going up at Gamasutra.com. And other than that, have a very lovely day, everyone.
Yeah, thanks.
Bye.
Thanks, Alex and Bryant. See ya.
Thank you.